All right, folks, welcome to the Big Steve Molesberg Show. Hour number one. We'll be joined by Bill Donohue momentarily. But, of course, the hunt for the missing airliner goes on, and people still holding their breath in some circles to see what Vladimir Putin will do next. I want to go back to the coverage, though, of the plane. Of course, CNN now just about constantly, 24/7, round the clock, nonstop, over and over and over with the same story, and that is the missing plane, even though there have really been no new developments today or yesterday or the day before. They are going with it. I guess their ratings bear it out. Bill O'Reilly criticized that a little bit yesterday. We had Mediaite editor Noah Rothman yesterday on this show criticizing CNN for what they're doing. It is getting really annoying, I have to tell you. Now, on the 5, not to be confused with Gimme 5, which is the final segment of every hour here on the Steve Molesberg Show, but on the 5 on the Fox News channel, Bob Beckel raised a question. Bob Beckel, the liberal, the token liberal on the 5, and here's what he said.
You have two pilots, pilot and co-pilot, both of whom are Muslims. Neither one of whom have been attached to any radical Islamic group so far. However, given the climate that we're living in, the climate of terrorism, and given this part of the world where this took place, it seemed to me to take a long time for them to begin to look into the backgrounds or whether they had any political radicalization in their background.
Yeah, it really has. Now, we've talked about on this show the possibility of terrorism, and to me, implicit in that is that if it was terrorism, if it was one of the pilots in on this, or one of the passengers, or the two passengers who had no the fake passports, when I talk about that, to me, it goes without saying that it's radical Islamic Muslim terrorism. You know, it's not a Christian evangelical on board that plane who, if they took it, and it's an act of sabotage or terror, took it down. It's not a Jewish settler from the West Bank who took it down. If it's an act of terrorism, it's radical Islamic terrorism, in my view. And Bob Beckel asks a great question. Why is everybody tiptoeing around that? Why on earth is everybody tiptoeing around that? So afraid to say it, so afraid to talk about it, so afraid to bring it up. Even Eric Bolling weighed in on the show and said there's a good chance a substantial population. And Dana Perino said she didn't think there was anything prejudiced about the investigation so far. She did wonder, quote, whether or not we've soft-pedaled that aspect of it up to now. The lone dissenting voice was Greg Gutfield, who compared Beckel's scenario to the days after the Boston Marathon bombing when people thought that the Tea Party might have been behind it because it happened on tax day. I don't think there's any comparison there at all. There was nothing to base that on. Here we have a large Muslim population on the plane, the two Muslim pilots, the simulator in the apartment. I mean, there's no comparison to say, oh, maybe it's the Tea Party. If somebody said maybe it's Jews, then I'd say there's an analogy. All right. Bill Donohue's here. I want you to see this first as we lead into Bill's interview. Give a view here.
Mayors stand with the LGBT community and boycott St. Patrick's Day parades.
More than 150,000 men and women will march up Fifth Avenue to honor the patron saint of Ireland.
Bill de Blasio boycotted this parade because its organizers banned gay groups from marching under their own
organizers.
In South Boston, thousands lined the streets for what is seen as one of the city's most cherished Irish events. Son of Irish immigrants, Mayor Martin Walsh decided not to march after talks failed to include a gay veterans group in the parade.
It comes down to being able to identify yourself in the parade. That's what it's all about.
All right, folks. That's, of course, the mayor of Boston and de Blasio, the mayor of New York, and that was on MSNBC, touting how the mayors boycotted the various parades in their towns on St. Patrick's Day. Joining us now to talk about all this and more is our friend Bill Donohue, the president of the Catholic League. Hello, Bill.
How you doing there, Steve?
Always great to see you. Now, before we get to the mayors boycotting and all that, beer companies, Sam Adams, Heineken, Guinness, pulled their sponsorships from these parades, and you're wearing a Guinness hat. What is that about?
Well, I did that intentionally to let people know that I was not one of their adversaries before now. And you can take it, Guinness. I've had it with them. I've had my last pint, quite frankly. The vice president of the Catholic League said I ought to burn that cap. Maybe I will when I get off the show. But look, we're going to let the Bostonians take care of Sam. If you begin to dilute your focus, you're going to atrophy the effectiveness. I'm going to go after Guinness big time, nonstop, relentlessly. And the result that I'm getting already from people is absolutely overwhelming. They have really made a serious mistake, Guinness, in trying to stick it to Roman Catholics.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. And from the way I see it, it's more of the same kind of economic blackmail that took place when the Arizona governor was deciding whether or not to sign that last bill. The NFL piled on, the Apple, other companies, threats, we'll take the Super Bowl away, we won't travel there. It's really out of hand. And that bill, in my view, didn't say what the people who are against it said it said. And what's going on here, the falsehoods about, let's take the New York parade, which I'm familiar with and you're familiar with, that gays can't march, that gays couldn't march holding hands. All that is so not true.
I marched led my own contingent. It's not a big contingent, about 100 people or so on St. Patrick's Day on Monday. I didn't ask people what they do in bed and with whom. What do I care if you're homosexual, heterosexual? If you're pro-life, I happen to be pro-life, but I will not allow you with a pro-life banner to join us. That's the stricture, the rule of the St. Patrick's Day Parade. And the same is true for every other cause. Now, if you're from County Kerry, if you're from Cardinal Spellman, if you're from the police department.
Then you get a banner.
Yeah, because it's your unit.
Right.
But there are no causes. This is not the place for some political cause. It's there to honor the patron saint of the Archdiocese of New York, St. Patrick. If you don't agree, that's what diversity means, then practice tolerance and go your own way.
All right, well, you wrote a piece also saying boycott Guinness, Sam Adams, and Heidegger. So tell me how that's progressing, how you plan to go about it.
Well, I'll tell you, the response I'm getting not only from bar owners already, but I'm hearing from bishops, including one from Lima, Peru,
wow,
of the Eastern Rite, former community organizers. I mean, we can't keep up with the emails coming in. People are fed up. This is the final straw. We are not anti-gay or anti-pro-life or anything of that nature. We're simply saying we have our own rules. And by the way, we won on this in 1995. 9-0. How often do you get a 9-0 unanimous decision? We're not trying to bust into
the court saying that the structure of the parade is perfectly legal.
And this parade begins, unlike other parades, with a mass in St. Patrick's Cathedral,
which Mayor de Blasio attended. Do you see hypocrisy there?
Can't believe. I would have more respect for him if he simply said, I disagree with the rules of the St. Patrick's Day Parade about gays not marching openly under their own banner. Instead, he tries to stiff us, then has his breakfast, which he initially canceled. Then he brought that back. And then he decides he's going to go to a mass. He doesn't believe in anything. He's a secularist. That's his business. But he shows up then with a blessing. You know, that's what you do when you're not Catholic. Let's say you're Protestant or Jewish and you were with a family and you wanted to go up at the communion rail.
You don't get the sacrament, but you
get a blessing. But somebody told him, some gay guy probably told him, some Catholic, that this is the way you do it. You go up there and go like this. I have nothing but contempt.
I don't know, because I'm not Catholic. So nobody does that?
Well, listen, no, you can do it. Okay. Let's say you're not Catholic.
What does it signify?
That basically says, I'm not going to receive communion.
Okay.
And the priest at that point, instead of giving you the communion wafer, he gives you a blessing. Okay. What he should have done was what his predecessor did. Michael Bloomberg is Jewish. Right. Michael Bloomberg is not anti-Catholic, unlike this mayor. Michael Bloomberg did the right thing. He simply sat in the pew like Ed Koch, who was another great man. Right. He didn't come up. Right. This guy wanted the photo op of showing that, oh, I have great respect for Catholics. Even I'll go up to communion at Mass and get a blessing. Oh, this man New York is in trouble having elected this guy, but now his numbers are back in the 30s again, so I'm very happy about that.
Now you have applied. The Gay Pride Parade is in June here in New York, and you have applied for a permit to march. Talk about that.
Yes, I just did this here about an hour ago. I went to this guy, Chris Frederick, who runs the managing director of the Heritage of Pride Parade the last Sunday in June. I asked him one simple sentence. I said, listen, I want to march under my own banner, Straight is Great, in the 2014 Heritage of Pride Parade. Do you agree? Are they going to let me do it or not? I'm waiting to see what they want to say. They have rules, by the way, and by the way, they have a right to have the rules, which says you have to have LGBT signs. You can't, if you're a corporation sponsor, we'll take your money, but you can't have the corporation logo. All right, you can disagree with the rules, but that's their parade.
Rules, right.
Why don't they respect us when it comes to the St. Patrick's Day Parade? This is driven because of the Catholic Church's teachings on marriage. That's what this is all about. It's about sexuality. Almost all the attacks that come across my my desk every day about Catholics has to do with sexuality. It's either gay issues or abortion issues or contraception issues. They just can't just leave us alone.
Yeah, no, very interesting. And I want to know exactly, when you get a response from them, you pick up the phone and let us know.
Oh, we're not going away.
No.
I dealt with the Miller Brewing Company back in the
Well,
fall.
not only I want to know from the parade organizer if they're going to let you march under the straight is great then.
Well, I'll let you know about that.
Yeah,
I'll see what they can do
Yeah.
about that. I'll bring a big wedding cake. But back in the fall of 2007, there was a violent anti-Catholic gay demonstration at the Folsom Street Parade. Without getting into all the explicits, let me just cut to the quick. The Miller Brewing Company was the biggest of the national sponsors. I went after them and I wanted a pledge saying they would never sponsor it again. And I sent pictures of the naked men to all the people who belonged to the Miller Brewing Company, the Board of Trustees and whatnot. After 5.5 weeks, I won. We're letting Guinness know right now, I don't walk away from a fight. They've bit off more than they can chew on this one.
All right, I want you to hear Bill Maher, if you could take it. You've had your run-ins, you've written the company, you've tried to get his show canceled at one point. I think what he did on Friday was one of the worst things he's done in a long time. Let's give a watch.
Hey, God, you know you're kind of a d when you're in a movie with Russell Crowe and you're the one with anger issues. You know, conservatives are always going on about how Americans are losing their values and their morality. Well, maybe it's because you worship a guy who drowns babies. And then God's genius plan after he kills everyone is to repopulate the world with a new crop of the same assholes who him off the first time. With predictable results. He kills millions more. If we were a dog and God owned us, the cops would come and take us away. Why are we getting our morals out of this book? Why do people follow any of it?
All right.
Well, listen, the man is obviously obsessed with the Judeo-Christian ethos, which is in fact the font of Western civilization and all the liberties that we've enjoyed, including his right to abuse freedom of speech. I don't know what's wrong with this man. I've had my problems with him for years. He has a particular hatred against the Catholic Church, but it's not just Catholics. Any man who gets up in the morning and is so obsessed with religion, with God, there's something going on inside of him. He needs to see the psychiatrist the way David Letterman goes to visit one once or twice every week.
Bill Donohue, you know you don't have a bigger admirer than me. And
Thank
you
you
know
so
that
much.
you could count on me for
we'll be back
this
on this
platform and keep us informed on the boycott,
Yep.
keep us informed on the banner for
Absolutely.
the Gay Pride Parade, and it's great to see you as always.
Thank you so much.
All right, folks, and again, these misconceptions, these lies that are told about the St. Patrick's Parade, very interesting point made by Bill about how a pro-life group couldn't march under their banner in the St. Patrick's Day Parade either. And the hypocrisy of de Blasio, it's mind-boggling. It really is. All right, when we come back, the panel will be here. Peter Marisi will be here, and former Special Assistant to George W. Bush, the one and only Ron Christie. And we'll talk about this and some other issues right here on the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax Television.
Thank you so much.
The Steve Malzberg Show.